Hello? Yes, I'm talking to you there. Come over here. I've got something I want to show you. And boy, have I got something special for you today. This is the Citroen Oli. It's a concept car, and I happen to think this is the most important electric car I have ever driven. And yes, spoiler alert, I have driven it. But you're going to have to wait until the end of the video to see what I think of it. But in the meantime, please do consider subscribing to the channel. If you've got any questions about the Oli, then please do drop them in the comments box below. So why is the Citroen Oli getting motoring journalists like myself all hot under the collar? Well, it's quite simple, really, because the Oli marks a turning point from manufacturers just churning out the current crop of electric cars. And the Oli actually confronts some of the problems that are inherent with electric cars, namely weight, efficiency, and longevity.
There is so much to tell you about the Oli, and I want to keep this brief to keep you interested. So here are the headlines.
Oh yes, this thing is very light indeed. Now, one of the biggest problems with electric cars is their weight. Even the ones with bespoke electric car platforms are pretty lardy. And of course, the greater the weight, the more energy that is needed to move and to stop it. And then of course, efficiency is compromised. The Oli might look like a big car. I mean, you can blame the chunky styling for that. But in actual fact, this has similar dimensions to a Volkswagen ID.3. But this is the really clever bit, because this car weighs 1,000 kilograms, a ton. To put that into perspective, a Volkswagen ID.3, the heaviest version of that car, weighs double this. 1,000 kilograms is comparable to the minuscule Smart 4.2.
Well, this is what happens when car designers and engineers are able to start afresh with a clean sheet of paper. They're able to do things differently. And one of the big things that's different with the Oli is what it's made of. A few of the panels are cardboard. Yes, really. Naturally, it's a little more complicated than this. Corrugated cardboard is stuck between fiberglass panels, which are then coated in polyurethane paint. But essentially, the roof, rear load bed, and the bonnet are all made from cardboard. And these panels are half the weight of normal steel panels.
Which means you can stand on the Oli, if you really want to. Now, one of the most distinctive styling features of the Oli is this flat windscreen. Now, you might be saying, surely a flat windscreen is really bad for aerodynamics, and it is. But the other weight savings saved outweigh the extra drag caused by that windscreen. And there's a very good reason why it's flat. In the summer months, it helps keep the cabin nice and cool. You haven't got a big slanting windscreen allowing the sun to warm up the cabin. Here, you're in shade and it remains nice and cool. Talking about windows, there are no bulky, heavy electric window mechanisms like you find in most electric cars. With the Oli, surprise, surprise, it's nice and simple. Now, this is a concept car. I do have to be very careful. This is the only one in the world, so I'm going to sort of demonstrate it to you now. So first of all, I have to open that door, and then I have to open this other door, kind of Mazda MX-30 style, then close this one, and then I can pop up this window, just like that. Look at that. So the windows pop out and up like they do in the Citroen Ami and of course the original 2CV. How cool is that? Then there are the wheels. Now, most manufacturers, they use either steel or alloy wheels, but Citroen has decided to combine the two for greater weight savings. In fact, the combination of steel and alloy saves 6 kilograms. And the tyres have also been rethought as well. Now the carcass remains with the tyre, but when the tread wears down, that's designed to be replaced. It's much like when you take your boots to the cobblers, you just replace the sole, not the actual boot. Now Citroen say that these tyres have a life of 300,000 kilometres. Now that's not such good news if you are a Citroen dealer and you rely on replacing consumable items like tyres, but good news for the wallets of people like, like you and I.
It won't come as a surprise to learn that Citroen's designers have also rethought practicalities like interior and luggage space. There's plenty of room for backseat passengers, but more amazingly is that the Oli can also become a pickup truck. The rear seat headrests pop up into the roof, the rear screen glass opens upwards, the tailgate folds down, and with the load bed panel removed, there's loads of space. There's even space up front for the charging cables.
Sorry. Got told off then. Not allowed to slam the door. Inside, and if you thought the outside was really wacky but also incredibly rational at the same time, the same is true of the interior. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in my automotive journalism career. Now, firstly, I'm obviously a big fan of the colour. I think red should be used in more car interiors. But this interior is brimming with really lovely design details that are also incredibly clever. Let's start off with the seats. Now in most cars they are big, bulky and cumbersome, and sometimes not all that comfortable. But again, Citroen has rethought the seat when it comes to the Oli, and they've looked to the world of the office chair. These are very similar to the types of chairs you might find in the workplace. So they are incredibly light, incredibly small, but also incredibly comfortable. Citroen has also pretty much thrown in the towel when it comes to the infotainment system, because let's face it, you can't beat the tech giants, can you? And I'm looking at you, Apple. There's no infotainment system here whatsoever. What you do get is a little slot. Look at this, I think this is fantastic. This little illuminated slot here that's flashing in my eyes at the moment is where you put your phone. Look at that. You just slot your smartphone into that little holder there, and then you're able to use that, call people, get your sat nav, what have you. And look at these little prongs here, they remind me of little golf tees, but that is designed for really simple and neat storage for perhaps your smartphone, so things don't roll around when you're driving. And look at these delicious little air conditioning controls. Simple, effective, just what you need. And this steering wheel is fantastic as well. Yes, it's sort of square in Austin Allegro style. And look at these stalks, and this one here is the most important one. It's your start stop, and it's also your gear selector. But when you actually move it, it just clicks round like a cog to drive neutral and reverse. Of course, there are some screens. This is a modern day car after all, but they're two thin little ones which give you all the vital information that you need, but they don't overload you. It's nice and simple and fuss free. I particularly like when you put the indicator on, you get a little Oli that just moves from side to side. That's lovely, isn't it? And there's one other thing that I've got to show you. Okay, so let me just open the door, which in itself is cool because you've got this pull tag, which is a bit like, I don't know, it reminds me of being in an aircraft. But just open the door and the ambient lighting comes on, which is lovely, isn't it? And this is your sound system. You've got one on that side as well. They are removable speakers. So, I mean, that's great if you're going on a picnic, for example, and you want to take your music with you. This is just yet another example of this car's fanatical attention to detail. Right then, let's drive this and try not to crash it. I mean, there are seat belts, but I am indoors and I've got this place to myself, so I should be fine. Into drive, foot brake off, there's a foot operated handbrake, and away we go. Now, The first thing to say is this car does have power assisted steering, but I've elected to have it switched off because it makes rather a loud noise. Another thing is this room that I'm driving in, there are lots and lots of metal grids. So that's all you can hear, I'm afraid. But I shall try and avoid the worst of them. Now, I've driven plenty of concept cars in my time. More often than not, they can only drive a few meters and about 2 miles an hour. This can actually drive properly on the road. My old mate Ginny Buckley actually had the world exclusive with this car, and she drove it round Paris of all places. Now, I have to say, first impressions of driving this Citroen Oli are, it's a bit like driving an Ami. You get the same kind of amazing visibility. You get this big square box. It feels a bit like you're driving an enormous Wendy house, and you've just got all this space, and it just feels nice and relaxing. You know, I haven't got all these screens and all these distractions. It's just nice and simple in here. The important stuff. Now, the Oli is powered by a 40 kilowatt hour battery, which might sound a little bit small, and it is. I mean, it's smaller than the battery you find in the Citroen EC4, for example. But because this car is so light, and because the battery is smaller and therefore lighter, Citroen claims this Oli should be able to do 250 miles on a full charge. The efficiency is also incredibly better than any other electric car on sale, 6 miles per kilowatt hour from the Oli. And when you charge it up, because there's a small battery, a 20 to 80% charge should only take around 20 minutes. Now, of course, my driving impressions are very limited, but like I say, it does feel, well, if the power steering system was on, which I have tried this car with the power steering system on, and like I say, it makes too much of a loud noise for you at home, but it does feel very manoeuvrable, and it feels like a normal car, this. And I know Citroen would have to change quite a few things before this was put into production, but from where I'm sitting, it feels great. Right then, I think it's time to hand this back to the Citroen man. And luckily for me, I'm returning it in one piece. Right, there we are then, the end of the video. And I'm going to go back to how I started this film in saying that this is the most important electric car I have ever driven. Why? Well, it's simple, because this is a seriously clever electric car. Citroen's designers have been, well, they've been able to be rid of all the baggage of current electric cars. They've been allowed to allow their imaginations to run wild. And I have to say, what they've achieved here is simply fascinating. Another thing I really like about the Oli is the longevity. Now, Citroen expect owners to hand down the Oli to future generations, and for people to personalise, update and make their Olis their own. And I think that's a really fantastic, sustainable message. Now, of course, the big question is, will Citroen make the Oli? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but Citroen do have a habit of putting their concept cars into production. Don't forget the Ami, for example. That was just a wild sketch a few years ago, and now you can go and buy one in your local Citroen dealership. Will Citroen actually make the Oli? I'm not quite so sure, but what I am sure of is that some of the features that are shown off in the Oli will definitely be appearing in future Citroen cars. And that is something that makes me so excited.